Hello everyone. Today I will recap you a movie titled Glass. So make some tea and we'll start. The film begins with a conversation between Dennis and Patricia. Dennis doubts the revolution that the Beast will bring. We see that the Horde, several individuals who believe in the greatness of the Beast, kidnapped 4 more girls and chained them up. In the next scene, a man in a dark green raincoat beats up 2 unscrupulous guys who are shooting videos of beating passers-by for the sake of views. This man in a raincoat turns out to be David Dunn, the main character of the film Unbreakable, a retelling of which is already on the channel. David returns to the store's warehouse, which is also a refuge for their son Joseph, or, if you like, a lair. The son asks David to rest, and at this request we can understand that David makes such outings regularly. David and his son Joseph are investigating. He is trying to track down the Horde that lives in the body of Kevin Crumb, the antagonist of the film Split, a retelling of which is also on the channel. At the same time, they lynched criminals and other unscrupulous citizens. We find out that the police are looking for David. David comes home and remembers his wife. Now she doesn't live with him, and later we will find out why this happened. We see how Hedwig communicates with the abducted girls. He says that the Beast will come for them any minute, since they are evil and have never suffered. David goes on another outing. His son tries to persuade his father to rest, but he can't do anything. Patrolling the district, David finds nothing and is about to go home, but at the last moment he meets a passerby and with the help of his super sense realizes that it is a Horde. He sees girls chained to rebar in some factory where there is a brick. He informs his son about this and gives the coordinates of a brick factory nearby. Hedwig goes down into the underpass and sees a lot of homeless people. The Beast comes out into the light. What he did to the homeless is anyone's guess. Chained girls hear the screeching and are very scared. It turns out that this is a man in a raincoat. By the way, thanks to the internet, he has several nicknames. The Green Guardian. He frees the girls, but soon the roar of the Beast is heard. The Beast climbs the ceiling beam, heading towards David. He throws David's desk, but David throws it back. There is a fight, as a result of which David jumps out of the window with the Beast hanging on his back. The Beast is about to attack David, but searchlights suddenly light up from the side, and we see a lot of police cars. They use some kind of device, after which Barry comes out into the light, and declare that he is not to blame for anything. David and Kevin are taken to a psychiatric hospital. There are a lot of taps in David's room, and in this case a huge amount of water will be supplied through them. Water is David's weakness. There is a special strobe light in the Horde ward, which, in the case of the birth of an aggressive person, will quickly lead to the birth of another. In the next scene, we see Casey, the main character of the previous film, where she is informed that her abductor has finally been detained. In the hospital, one of the Horde personalities, asking for help to lift the syringe of an orderly, attacks him. Nothing works out for him. As a result, Patricia Is Born, who is trying to find out about the man in the raincoat. Elijah's mother, or Mr. Glass, if you like, is talking to a psychiatrist. We understand that he is in the same hospital with Horde and Dennis. During the food delivery, David and Orta find out that they are in the wards opposite each other and are separated by only 2 doors and a corridor. In the next frame, we see that security measures were applied to David. The psychiatrist asks David to consent to a magnetic resonance imaging. At the same time, the Horde makes countless attempts to escape, but the doctor reports that the lights are turned on remotely, and the cameras are constantly under surveillance. The doctor communicates with Hedwig, and Patricia is born. Patricia asks if a man in a raincoat will come out. Joseph, David's son, tries to talk to Dr. Staple and convince her that his father is not a Green Guardian, but he does not succeed. From their conversation, we learn that Joseph's mother, who is also David's wife, died 5 years ago, and this was a huge blow for her son and father. Joseph leaves the hospital in a depressed state and leaves. At the same time, Casey arrives at the hospital and asks Dr. Staple for a meeting with the Horde. She, after some persuasion, agrees. Casey is talking to Hedwig. Hedwig tells the doctor that he kissed Casey. Casey asks him to give light to Dennis. Casey tries to convince Dennis to give up the light and touches him. Touching him, Kevin comes out. Casey manages to tell him that she has sued her uncle and that he is now in prison. Hedwig is born. Casey is about to leave. The doctor asks her to help and stay, because love and affection can help Kevin recover, but Casey leaves anyway. The psychiatrist contacts Mr. Glass and informs him that cameras are installed everywhere and he will not be able to take a step without them noticing. It looks like he's not even able to talk because of the pills. The nurses find Elijah, who has left the ward. They check medications and don't find any losses. They decide they just forgot to close the door. The doctor puts the Horde, David and Elijah in the same room and suggests that they are mistaken, that they are superhumans, that they have a disorder as a result of which they consider themselves as such, and gives various arguments. She addresses Kevin, calling him by his full name, but does not have time to learn anything from him, because Hedwig takes the lantern from him and says that Miss Patricia asks him not to give Kevin the light, that this is his main task. The doctor talks to David and tells him that she found a darkening in the frontal lobe on his MRI, which was most likely caused by the incident that Kevin got into, and this confirms her guesses that David has a diagnosis. As for Elijah, she says that she found confirmation of her assumption by studying his MRI, of which there are many in his medical history. She also tries to convince David that his superintuition is actually a very quick analysis of small details, thanks to which he comes to a certain conclusion. After that, she turns to the Horde, Patricia Is Born, and the doctor suggests that the beast's ability to climb walls is a practical observation that has developed into a practical skill in one of the ego states. Then Patricia asks, "What about injections?" But the doctor has an answer to that, too. She says that the pistol and cartridges are old, besides the latter were exposed to humidity in the boiler room where they were stored, which probably caused them to deteriorate. Casey is talking to a comic book salesman. She pays and leaves. We see Joseph in the same store. He discovers a comic book called Who Are His Parents, and he begins to understand everything. He starts looking for information about Kevin's parents. Casey is reading a comic book at home at this time. She finds a lot of images there that remind her of her first encounter with the beast. The orderly hears rustling and assumes that Elijah has left the ward again. He threatens Elijah with a flashlight, trying to find out if he was taken out of the ward, but decides that he imagined it. The orderlies have started changing shifts, and the changed orderly starts a conversation with the guard at the entrance. At this time, Mr. Glass leaves the ward and searches for information about the Green Guard on the internet. He also looks at Kevin's medical history and is very surprised by something. Elijah enters the ward to the Horde. Patricia has the light now, and Elijah says he wants to see the beast, and they agree that tomorrow they will meet and the beast will come out into the light. Patricia strongly doubts the beast's superhuman abilities, but Mr. Glass partially restores her faith. In the morning, the doctor wakes Elijah up and informs him that the procedure will be performed today, as it was discovered that Elijah left the ward at night. He is taken to the operating room and a laser is pointed at his head. Elijah is immersed in memories. He rides the ride in secret from his mother. His mother notices this and tries to stop the attraction, but does not have time. As a result, young Elijah breaks a lot of bones. Elijah wakes up and sits senseless in his room. An orderly comes to him to bring food. He sits down on the bed in front of Elijah and he suddenly cuts the nurse's throat with a piece of glass. It turns out that last night Elijah broke into the surgical department and damaged the device with which he had to perform an operation to remove the lens. After that, he deliberately allowed the cameras to detect himself. He planned everything. Elijah enters the Horde room and brings Hedwig into the light with a stroboscope. Mr. Glass and Hedwig go to another room, where Hedwig lights up the beast. The beast attacks Elijah, but, realizing that he has suffered, decides to trust him. Elijah tells the beast that he must fight David in a public place. He suggests doing this at the opening of the skyscraper, which will happen in the near future. Elijah communicates with David through a microphone. He turns off the taps in David's room and talks about his plans to blow up a skyscraper. Elijah offers David to free himself and stop them, for this he will have to crack the steel door. David is not confident in his abilities. The second orderly comes on shift and sees a half-eaten lunch. He notices on his cameras his colleague lying in Elijah's room. He goes to find out what happened. The orderly goes to the clothing warehouse and finds Mr. Glass there. A beast appears behind the orderly and asks him to fall in front of Mr. Glass. After that, he grabs him from behind and breaks Sam Talk's back and smashes his head with his bare hands. David tries to kick down the door. There are already dents on it, and David is starting to gain confidence. At the same time, Mr. Glass and Patricia, disguised as paramedics, try to leave the building through the basement. David knocks down the door and goes to the clothing warehouse to pick up his raincoat and an engagement ring on a chain. Joseph and Casey come to the hospital to talk to the doctor. Elijah's mother also participates in the conversation with them, and they try to convince the doctor of the reality of superhuman abilities. The doctor tries to deny everything, and at this time she receives a message about the escape. She goes to check what's going on. Along the way, Mr. Glass and Patricia meet 3 guards. The beast comes out into the light and easily deals with them. The doctor discovers the disappearance of 3 patients and a message from Elijah, in which he hints that they will go to the opening of the skyscraper. Elijah's mother tells Joseph and Casey that there is a typical ending for limited editions of comics, where a hero and a villain battle takes place and their abilities are fully manifested. The beast and Elijah exit the building. The beast attacks the guard's car, turning it over. Dr. Staple is calling for backup due to an emergency. Kevin fights for the light, and Dennis declares that he does not need victims, but the light is quickly taken away from him. The beast comes out into the light and easily deals with several more guards. David exits the building and they engage in a fight with the beast. Dr. Staple asks the guards to keep the staff and patients away from the windows from which their battle can be seen. The beast strangles David and simultaneously strikes him many times. Several police cars arrive. Casey tries to explain to the police that Kevin has a split personality, but no one wants to listen to her. David hits the beast against the van, and the weakened beast falls. At this time, each of them is attacked by several policemen with shields. David closes several of them in a shipping container, and the beast removes its part in its usual manner, kills. We see that everything that happens is recorded on cameras. The doctor asks Casey to bring Kevin out into the light, as the strobe light will not work in daylight. Mr. Glass informs the beast about David's weakness, water. At this time, Joseph stands between the beast and David. Joseph claims that in the comics, the key to understanding the villain is his parents. Joseph says Kevin's father didn't just get on the train and didn't come back. In fact, he was on the same train as David Dunn, on the same train that killed all the passengers except David, and the crash of this train was organized by Mr. Glass. Glass justifies his actions by the appearance and existence of David and the beast. The beast claims that Elijah's deeds are great, but he was born to protect Kevin, and from now on he cannot entrust his life to Elijah. The beast breaks Elijah's collarbone, but David distracts him. The beast hits Elijah hard in the chest, he flies several meters away, and blood begins to ooze from his mouth. The beast grabs David and flies with him at full speed into a huge water tank. David begins to drown, and the beast holds him by the neck, but the Green Guardian manages to notice that the tank wall begins to crack, and after a couple of blows from David, he breaks through and washes them both out of the water tank. The beast tells David that it will end him in front of the whole world, but Casey stops him and tries to call Kevin, hugging the beast and calling him by his full name. She succeeds. Kevin is scared. Casey realizes that the light belongs to Kevin and informs him about it. She asks him to stay with her in the light. At this moment, a sniper shoots Kevin in the stomach. Joseph asks the commandos to help his father. Instead, the commandos begin to drown the weakened David in a puddle. Dr. Staple asks David to take her hand. After touching, David sees a meeting of a secret society. He also notices a 3-leaf clover tattoo on her arm. She says she had no choice, and David dies by drowning in a puddle. Kevin dies in Casey's arms. Different personalities take turns coming out into the light and uttering touching phrases. Kevin says they are all very scared and asks if Casey is really his friend. After a positive answer, he says that he will keep the light on until the very end, and it's not so bad to be in the light. Soon he dies. Casey kisses him on the forehead. At this time, Elijah dies in front of his mother. Dr. Staple asks his mother to back off. From her words, we learn that she is a member of a secret society that believes that there should be no gods among people, and that their society has existed for 10,000 years. She also says that the more people believe in heroes, the stronger they become. She tells Elijah that she will take comfort in the fact that he was right, and leaves. Elijah is dying. Dr. Staple informs all witnesses that everything that happened must remain a secret. Dr. Staple informs a public meeting that there will be no consequences. She says persuasion is the most humane way, and it should be used. If that doesn't help, use a laser. Their task is to maintain balance and order. Dr. Staple comes to the comic book store and, having heard the conversation of teenagers, understands something. She goes to the hospital to verify or refute her guesses. There she learns that all the CCTV footage has been erased, but before that they were uploaded to a third-party website. Elijah planned everything so that as many people as possible would learn about superheroes and understand that he was going to his death, and the story of the tower explosion was needed only to avert their eyes. We see Elijah's mother, who is looking through the camera footage showing the superhuman abilities of Horde and David. Elijah believed that the recordings would help increase the number of superheroes, and bequeathed to distribute these recordings. We see Casey, Joseph, and Elijah's mother. They met in a crowded place and observed the results of their work. They posted the video online 2 hours ago and see how passersby start discussing them. Their goal has been achieved, and they believe that their work is done.